The Crips and Bloods, two names synonymous with gang violence etched into the fabric of Los Angeles. These two gangs have become infamous, their names evoking images of brutal confrontations and tragic losses. But how did it all begin? Their rivalry, a bloody feud spanning decades, has claimed countless lives and left a scar on the soul of the city. The violence has permeated every corner of Los Angeles, from the bustling downtown streets to the quiet suburban neighborhoods. Families have been torn apart, and communities have been left to pick up the pieces. But their story, like all tragedies, begins not with hate, but with a search for belonging and protection. In the turbulent 1960s, young African Americans in Los Angeles faced systemic racism, economic hardship, and a lack of opportunities. They sought refuge in groups that offered a sense of identity and security. The Crips emerged first, born in the late 1960s amidst the social upheaval that gripped America. The civil rights movement was in full swing, and the fight for equality was on everyone's minds. Amidst this backdrop, the Crips were formed as a way for young men to stand up against the oppression they faced daily. Founded by Raymond Washington and Stanley Tookie Williams, they were young men seeking to reclaim a sense of power in a world that had marginalized them. They envisioned the Crips as a community organization that would protect their neighborhoods and provide a sense of pride and unity. Their chosen color was blue, a symbol of unity that would soon be twisted into a banner of intimidation. What started as a symbol of solidarity and strength quickly became associated with fear and violence as the Crips' influence grew. Across the dividing lines of South Central, another force was rising. The Bloods, formed in response to the growing influence of the Crips, adopted red as their emblem. They too sought to protect their communities and assert their presence in a city that often overlooked them. The Bloods, formed in response to the growing influence of the Crips, adopted red as their emblem. Their red bandanas became a symbol of defiance and resistance, a way to distinguish themselves from their rivals and assert their own identity. What began as neighborhood skirmishes over turf and reputation quickly spiraled into a full-blown war, fueled by vengeance and the allure of illicit profits. The battles between the Crips and Bloods became more frequent and more violent, drawing in more young men who saw gang life as their only option. The streets of Los Angeles became a battleground stained with the blood of young men caught in a cycle of violence they could not escape. Law enforcement struggled to contain the violence, and the community was left to deal with the aftermath of each brutal encounter. The colors they wore, once symbols of solidarity, transformed into targets, marking them for death in the eyes of their rivals. The blue and red bandanas that once represented unity and pride became symbols of division and conflict, perpetuating a cycle of violence that continues to this day. To understand the rise of the Crips and Bloods, one must look beyond the headlines of gang violence and delve into the fertile ground from which they sprung, South Central Los Angeles. This area, often romanticized or vilified in popular culture, was a microcosm of broader societal issues plaguing America during the 1960s and 70s. South Central Los Angeles was a community grappling with poverty, unemployment, and racial discrimination. The economic opportunities that had once drawn families to the area were rapidly disappearing, leaving a vacuum of despair and frustration. The factories and businesses that once provided jobs were closing down, and the promises of a better future seemed to fade with each passing day. The social fabric of the community was unraveling, and the sense of hopelessness was palpable. Families struggled to make ends meet, and the dream of upward mobility seemed increasingly out of reach. The promises of the civil rights movement seemed to have bypassed South Central, leaving its residents feeling like strangers in their own land. The camaraderie and respect within the gang offered a stark contrast to the neglect and indifference they faced in the outside world. The streets, though dangerous, offered a twisted sense of freedom, a chance to escape the stifling confines of poverty and assert their presence in a world that seemed determined to ignore them. The allure of the gang was powerful, offering brotherhood, respect, and a chance to escape the crushing weight of their circumstances. A chance to escape the stifling confines of poverty and assert their presence in a world that seemed determined to ignore them. The gang provided a sense of purpose and belonging that was otherwise missing from their lives. It was a way to carve out an identity and gain respect in a society that offered them little. The allure of the gang was powerful, offering brotherhood, respect, and a chance to escape the crushing weight of their circumstances. But this escape came at a terrible price. one that would be paid for in blood and tears for generations to come, and a chance to escape the crushing weight of their circumstances. The sense of belonging and identity came with a cost, as the cycle of violence and retribution took its toll on the community. The very thing that offered an escape also ensnared them in a web of danger and despair. But this escape came at a terrible price, one that would be paid for in blood and tears for generations to come. The legacy of gang violence left scars that would be felt long after the initial allure had faded, impacting families and communities in profound and lasting ways. Stories began to capture the public's imagination. It wasn't long before Hollywood took notice. Films and television series started to depict the gritty reality of life on the streets, often glamorizing the violence and the lifestyle. These portrayals, while sometimes controversial, brought the harsh realities of gang life into the mainstream consciousness. The line between reality and entertainment blurred, influencing both the perception of gangs and the behavior of those involved. The streets became a stage, and the screen a mirror, reflecting and shaping the ongoing saga of gang culture.